Kia ora, everyone. Ko Helen Davidson, tōku ingoa. I'm Helen. I'm the CEO of ACE New Zealand and delighted to have you here today for our webinar. I'm going to start us off with a karakia today. Tu taua mai I runga, tu taua mai I raro, tu taua mai I waho, tu taua mai I roto. Kia tau ai, te mari tu, te mari ora, ki te katoa, haumie, huie, taiki.
Thank you.
ACE is proud to be your consultants champion, working to elevate the voices, readiness, and professionalism of consultants across New Zealand's built and natural environments. What we know is that this is a sector that experiences more than its fair share of ups and downs, booms and busts. And we know that these last 18 months have been particularly challenging for many. Our quarterly How's Business surveys have shown us that we've lost large numbers of people from the sector amidst a slowdown in work driven by economic pressures and changes in government priorities. And yet we know we have a significant infrastructure deficit, a growing population, and other intangible challenges, or dare I say, existential crises like climate change, AI, growing a diverse and inclusive workforce that our communities need us to lean into right now. All this matters to us at ACE, and one of our strategic pillars is about powering successful businesses that are ready for the future. What I love about my role is how we can play a part in bringing members together to talk about these issues, share the pain of the challenges, but more importantly, the opportunity of facing into them and lifting the tide for everybody. And it's not just about bringing members together, it's also about forging strategic partnerships with other organisations that we can work alongside with similar goals and aims around enhancing the consulting and engineering sector, like Projectworks. And we've been delighted to partner with Projectworks this year to help you stay front and centre of the conversations that matter. Projectworks provides project financial software for consultants, specifically designed for engineers, architects, and consultants. And it is, to use their words, software that helps you spot project hell before it happens. So there you go. Together with Projectworks, we've recently undertaken 3 roundtable lunches to hear from our members around what they need to gear up for growth. And this has helped ACE to further understand what our members need to make what you need to make yourselves ready for the future. And certainly in these discussions, the optimism, the hope, and the excitement for facing strategically into the future, in spite of current challenges, was really palpable. So this webinar is a continuation of this discussion, sharing learnings and ideas with our membership, and we hope that it resonates. So please contribute in the chat as we go as to what your thoughts and experiences are. Before we get into the panel discussion today, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mark Orttung, CEO of Projectworks, as our ACE partner in helping consultancies streamline operations and scale impact. Mark brings deep leadership experience from Build.com and Nexient and a strong passion for supporting mission-driven firms like our members to bring their best to the consultancy market without getting stuck in the project financials. I had the pleasure of spending an hour with Mark yesterday and hear his insights and experience, and they're remarkable. I could have listened for ages, but I'm going to pass you now for Mark to share a few words before we get into the panel discussion. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Helen. And I really enjoyed the conversation yesterday. I wanted to start by saying on behalf of Projectworks, thank you to ACE for pulling this group together. We're really excited to work with the community, and we see it as a big part of our mission to strengthen the engineering companies that are out there and hopefully give you guys tools that can help you even in these challenging times. So maybe I'll give just a very brief introduction to Projectworks so you get a sense for it. What we do, as Helen said, we're trying to keep you out of Project Hell. It's really around giving you real-time information from a financial perspective about your project. So will this one be profitable? Will it get to the end of the project as I'm expecting? Or can we give you some early warning signs if it's off track? We also have quite a robust module for doing resource management. So who's working on which projects, who's available? Will I have a lot of people sitting on the bench, or will I have not enough people to start the new projects that I've got? When I ran Nexient, which was a software engineering firm, that was constantly my challenge. Was we were never had the right number of people. We either had too many and there were people on the bench and it was a big problem, or we had sold something new and we didn't have enough people to get it started. So we give you a really great tool for planning all of that. And then we help you with a lot of the administrative things as well. So things like time cards and leave management and invoicing, so that hopefully you can spend more time with clients and less time on the back office. I know pretty much across all consulting and engineering and architecture firms, everybody likes to work with clients. Nobody really likes to run sort of the practice. It's just not as fun. It's not, it's just you're in this to be working with clients. So we want to free up as much of that admin time and give it back to you so that you can go work more with your clients and work on your business. Um, so we've been really enjoying the partnership with ACE since the beginning of the year. As Helen mentioned, we had roundtables in Wellington, in Auckland, and in Christchurch, and we had a lot of great input there. We've recently come out with a study that talks about some of the challenges that have been going on over the past 18 months. So I think that research report, and it's something we can make available to people if you're interested, really highlighted sort of the pressure that you're feeling on profitability and margins whenever you've got, as you all know, are painfully aware, when the growth slows and you just don't have the new projects coming, it puts so much pressure on your operating margin as a company, and even potentially on the margins on a specific project as well. So those strains on capacity and on margins are really top of mind. And then there's also a lot of change happening in technology. Everybody, I'm sure, is inundated with all the different AI things happening out in the world, and some of them are great, some of them maybe are a waste of time, and it's kind of a lot of work to sort of sift through it all and figure out which ones are valuable and which ones are not. So that's hopefully a piece we can spend time on as well in the roundtable. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, and excited to dive in to the conversation.
Thank you, Mark. And now it's time for our panel discussion and to learn and share from each other. But first, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our panel to you today. So first up, I'd love to introduce Emily Afua, Director of Tectus Consultants. So Dr. Emily Afua, ngā puhi Ngāti Maniapoto, is a Chartered Environmental Engineer and Co-Director of Tectus. Based in Tamaki Makaurau, she specialises in water-sensitive urban design and catchment scale water management, and is a leading advocate for integrating Mātauranga Māori into engineering practice. So welcome, Emily. Next up, we have Stephen Price, Managing Director of Riley Consultants. Stephen is the Managing Director of Riley, based in Tamaki Makaurau also, with a background in applied geology and geotechnical engineering. He brings decades of leadership and technical expertise to infrastructure and environmental projects across Aotearoa. So welcome, Stephen. And last but certainly not least, Andy Lind is the Director of EngCo, located in Ōtautahi, a specialist in soil structure interaction and geotechnics. Andy is known for delivering innovative, cost-effective engineering solutions on large-scale civil projects and international builds. So welcome, Andy. Lovely to have you all here today with us. Now, I'm going to go straight to that part of the question. Mark, you were talking to us about AI, so let's just delve in right there. And to get us started, I'm going to start with a question for you, Stephen. I'm really keen to know, what's one technology or AI tool that you've invested in or decided not to, and why?
Oh, well, thanks, Helen, for the opportunity to speak here as well, and all the people at ACE working behind the scenes. Just want to thank them as well for us. And thanks for the introduction. You make me sound far more capable than I actually am. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So yeah, at Riley, we've made a decision to invest in technology, and that's aligned with our strategy. But I think, as others will agree, it's bewildering out there. It's absolutely bewildering. And what actually makes the boat go faster Where do you throw the money? So as a company, we've identified a few areas for potential investment. I'm just sort of giving the background here. But the question is, what do you do? So for us, we've brought in an external technology specialist just to help us prioritize what it is that we actually do and understand the risks around which technologies we should invest into. And that's great. One of the things we've learnt, though, is that integrating technology, particularly AI, as a top-down, doesn't actually work or it has some limitations to it, I should say. And I think the recent MIT study that people may be aware of has reinforced that. That's come out recently. So we believe at Riley in a more of a bottom-up type approach, an organic type approach, where we operate within a set of policy boundaries, and we're adopting the ACE ones, which have been provided on ACE on AI, and we've just adapted them to our setting, and we're empowering staff to come up with ideas and opportunities around AI within those policy settings. So an example of what we have done is we've developed a machine learning for rainfall runoff modeling. So machine learning is a subset of AI, and that initially required an upfront investment and belief in one of our staff, a real go-getter, and it came to me and was like, I need this amount of money, and I want to do this. And at the end of it, there's 2 potential identified clients for this. So yeah, I proved that. It got underway. We've developed it. One client has said no, but another client has picked it up. So we're busy working with that at the moment. There'll be opportunity to validate the work and improve the models. So yeah, there's an actual AI that's actually underway and actually out in the world at the moment doing what it's doing. We'll see how it goes. Good on the client for having that bravery to adopt something new. We see other AI opportunities also around, and I assume others have as well, around report preparation and document searching. But there's risks around that, as you're probably all aware. Who owns what? What does it do? What is it hallucinating? We've probably all seen it with ChatGPT when it makes stuff up out of nowhere. So yeah, that's where we're at. I see it as a constantly moving area, and as a SME, we're a company of 100 people. We're not keen to be bleeding edge. We're honestly not keen to be bleeding edge in this area. So yeah, that's how I'd answer that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephen. And just reflecting on that, it's your comment around AI being a constantly moving area, and you do have to be quite intentional about managing the hype and where you put your investments in a really fast-moving environment. So my next question is going to lean into that with you, Mark, and it's how do you balance that hype and the reality of AI when planning your investments?
Yeah, great question. I always go back to trying to balance out people and the processes you're running and the technology. A lot of times people get really excited about the technology and they just want to sort of implement it for its own sake. But I think you really need to have a crisp view of what is the process that my team is doing. And then you can look at different tools on the different steps and say, does it make this step better or not? And have some really concrete way to measure that. So whatever the output of that step might be, can I improve my metrics or not? And that way you're at least kind of grounded in, what are we trying to do? And is this tool actually making it better for us rather than just, hey, we have ChatGPT, here it is, everybody should use it. Sort of ambiguous as to like exactly what you're supposed to do with it and like how does this make my life better? Maybe it does, I don't know. But so I like to really ground it in that process and what the team is doing, and then hopefully it's very measurable. And the other challenge is that happens is there's so much change going on at once. If you have that sort of grounding in the process, you can keep coming back to it and saying, is there something new for a different step in the process that just came out and we want to experiment with it? Then at least you have a definition of what would it look like if it succeeded and it gave me a real help or not. Yeah, so that's how I like to kind of filter it all out. There's a lot going on out there.
Yeah, great practical tips. Thank you, Mark. I know a lot of our SME members are very time poor and really struggle in this space. And Emily, we had a great conversation yesterday or on Monday where you said, I wish I had the time to invest the time to save me time with AI. It was something along those lines. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the challenges that you're facing and what you're thinking as a business around AI and your priorities.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you, Helen. I actually have picked up on a few more words along the way. Mark, you mentioned there's an element of sifting through, and Stephen, you mentioned some of it's potentially bewildering. And without undermining the significant capability of our team in Tectus, we're kind of sitting in that space, to be perfectly honest. Mark, you mentioned a crisp view of the process. We're at the smaller end of the SME spectrum. We're at 23 part and full-time staff now. And the practical realities of growing an SME is that we're still landing crispness in some of our processes. And so we have been investing in automation of elements. We've brought some new, additional skills into the business around geospatial analysis, data management. There's lots of pieces there, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that we've been investing in AI yet. And part of that is because of the uncertainty around security, investing the time and making sure that the data we invest or the work that we're doing for clients is appropriately protected, particularly, in our Māori, if we're working with iwi, hapu and whānau, data sovereignty is a really big conversation of its own. How do we ensure that the work we do is authentic if we haven't done the homework to understand tools that work in a far bigger space than I'm fully cognizant of? Are doing the work we needed in a way that protects the interests of our clients and of our team. So, we've got appetite to lean into it. We know that there's so much momentum out there. I like the thought we don't have an intention of being that bleeding edge either. We don't want to lag too far behind, but we've got a lot of opportunity for refining what we do as a business, still sitting in the basics as we're growing. And we've got digital natives in the business who are taking a bottom-up approach. We've also used the ACE guidance around a policy framework to set some boundaries around how we use it. But for us, it's a watch this space. How can we improve some of the work that we're already doing that's more automation and algorithm and data management and display and accessibility for dashboarding type work and take it to the next level. So it's actually the second time today. I was at a beautiful kōrero this morning, he wahine he ao, with Indigenous women business leaders, and heard conversation like Stephen of some external support coming in, and it's twigged a few thoughts. Maybe there's another way I can find that time to invest time to save time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Emily. Andy, love to hear from you on the topic and what you're doing in your business.
Oh yeah, so I'm an engineer like everyone else, and it's quite interesting. All of the team are very excited by AI actually, and probably our biggest problem is trying to rein in the excitement before everyone starts going in different directions and coming with too many different ideas on it. As soon as you start playing with it, of course, you can see potential very quickly, and everyone gets very excited. So just going to Mark's comments about starting to implement technology for the sake of it is kind of the challenge in some ways. The time invested in it and working out whether you're going to get the reward is the real challenge. And I guess I look at it quite simply. Just there's things like spreadsheets, which engineers love spreadsheets, and most firms really struggle spending the time just developing a really good spreadsheet for some fairly basic stuff because it's so time consuming to get it really nailed down. And AI is just on the next level to that. But probably with less visibility about where are you going to get to at the end. You start playing with it and you go, this looks great, but it's very, very challenging when you don't know how much time it's going to take to get you there, and you don't actually know what the end destination is. You just know that it's going to be good. But yeah, so I'm probably in the same boat as a lot of people, which is I kind of feel like we are dabbling in it. We are building our own bots internally, and we've got a server set up, and we ring fence the information that we're allowing that bot to access. So it doesn't go to the whole internet. It just looks at the information that we have on our own internal knowledge base and our own internal files, and I think that's helping quite a bit. But even that is very difficult to control exactly where it's going and where it's going to end up, and how much you invest in it. Personally, I am very excited. I think it's going to have massive benefits, as we all do. Exactly when we see that, I'm not quite sure. We're very cautious that it can defocus the concentration that we have to put on communication. That's not changing. Most projects where they get into trouble, it's nearly always on a communication front. So anything that detracts from that, of course, is you don't want to defocus from that just because you're trying to get some efficiency in the internal systems. So yeah, it's an exciting new world out there though at the moment, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that reflection. There is a comment in the chat from Jonathan. I'm just going to read it out, and then Mark, I was wondering if you wanted to share any thoughts on it. And the question is, I worry about where things are going with cloud software. If everything becomes cloud-based and subscription-based, who really owns our data? How does this affect directions and hardware? File sizes are getting bigger and bigger. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I do. Strong thoughts. If you're using B2B cloud software, it should be your data. You should own the data. Your company should own the data. There's a lot of business to consumer, or consumer applications where I think there's sort of a trade-off that people make. I don't like to make it myself, but like Facebook's a great example where effectively you give up your own privacy in order to get this service for free. But in most business contexts, you are paying a subscription fee to use the software, and it should be very clear in their privacy policy and in their contract and in their data information that it is your data. And if you want to get it back at any time, if you want them to delete it at any time, those should all be 100% in your control as the customer. That's my view on it and the way we think about it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Mm.
I'm going to take a shift now from from directly on AI. So AI might come up in our following conversations, of course, but I'm going to focus us now to talk a little bit about lessons from disruption, which is one of the other themes that came up through our roundtables. And I'm going to start with you, Emily. Just really keen to hear about your thoughts around leadership of the business during a period of disruption, whether it's something that you've learned from a past disruption that's guiding you now, and how you're kind of staying focused on the big picture as well as dealing with the here and now.
Kia ora. Yeah, so I think thinking on a disruption, I guess, I know it's old news now, but harking back to COVID and then these kind of recessionary times where business has slowed, I think for us, our lesson has been to ground ourselves very much in the values of who we are. We have had a journey where a lot of our work has come through referrals, repeat business. It hasn't been something we've had to actively seek out. And then when the market changes, we realize, okay, we have to respond. We start to look at how to improve some of the efficiency in our operations. Our team is quite whānau based, it's quite a small team. We've come through this growth period together. We realized we had to start being more intentional as well in talking about business performance, because all of the fun things that we do still rely on us being a profitable business. And at the same time as we're going out to market to perhaps more actively seek work when things are slowing down, part of that has been solidifying our culture and values, but also tightening up what are we excellent at? What are the lanes we want to play in? Because when we're a small business, and I'm sure a lot of growing businesses will identify with that, if someone wants to work with you, you're like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, cool. We'd love to work with you. Yeah, we can do that. I'm sure we can do that. Whereas now we're finding where our core skill set is, where we find joy, where our team are inspired to work as well. And how can we do that through a values-led approach? we have duality in our business ownership and leadership between Jack and myself, kind of duality in a number of levels, being wahine a tāne, tangata whenua, tangata tiriti. There's lots of elements in the business that we've realised that's core to who we are and how we represent ourselves in the market. And so as a Māori woman business leader as well, it's expressing how we deliver that through engineering practice and investing the time with our team to understand concepts of tikanga, to hear how we can express those values in the way we work. So I guess my leadership lesson has been, even in lean times, and we've still been really fortunate as a business, we haven't been hit anywhere near as hard as others. I think that's because of the strength of our conviction and our values and the relationships and how we nurture them. So it feels like what I'm saying is taking it back to basics or things that people really know, but that has been one of our biggest lessons. We don't have to pivot to be everything for everyone because we're scared of changes in the market. Actually, our strength has been in finding we know who we are and that our passion is around water, around why. We do that through public sector and private sector and land development, and that's kind of our foundation that we can move forward from. I don't know if I've entirely answered the question, but that's been kind of that business identity that's grounded in values has been a strength that has supported us through disruption.
I love that. Thank you, Emily. Coming back to basis, thinking about your values base, some really good lessons in that, grounding your work now and into the future. I'm going to throw the same question to you, Stephen, around when facing disruption, how do you manage those long-term strategic goals against short-term priorities if they're rubbing up against each other?
Yeah, just listen to Emily. I agree. The values is a key element here at Riley. Yeah, we have 5 key values, and we live and breathe it, and we integrate it into performance assessments as well, which helps to embed it into the culture of the company. So 100% I agree. I just want to acknowledge as well, and Emily raised it as well, Riley hasn't been affected as badly as some other companies out there, and I want to acknowledge it's pretty brutal out there. I've had friends and acquaintances who have lost their jobs, and I just want to acknowledge that. For us, we've been fortunate that our strategy is aligned with some fairly resilient industries such as energy and water supply. We still need those things, but there's no doubt. We've had a revenue hit. Auckland residential market, it's down about 40% for us, just to put a number on it. So what we're doing in answer to the question is we've got an eye looking both ways. We've got one eye looking at the long-term strategy and one eye looking at business resilience, and we have frameworks for both. I've sat down and done a long-term strategy, which is 5 years, and I've also done a business resilience strategy, which is sort of a 3-month horizon, and we review the strategy on a quarterly basis, and we review business resilience settings on a monthly basis. So that's kind of how we're doing it. And that business resilience has a hierarchy of controls. We have four levels of controls, and we review it against cash flow, forecasting of work to come in, and also our monthly revenue. So it's a bit prescriptive, but we can choose what we want to do. So what are the opportunities we get out of it? Well, I see currently that there's an opportunity there. Speaking as a SME, when the war on talent's on 2 years ago, it was bloody hard to get the talent that you want. And now there's actually potentially opportunities there. So that's why I'm saying, keeping one eye on that long-term view, how can we align ourselves with that strategy at the same time as being resilient? But one of the key questions, and Emily highlights it as well, is how the heck do you find all the time for all of these things? And I think it's like raising children. Sorry to put it in that phrase, but I think it's about embedding it into routines.
Yeah.
And you routinely do this every 3 months, you routinely do this every month, and suddenly it just naturally happens. And the key word that you used at the end there, Helen, was momentum, and that maintains the momentum.
Can I leap into tautoko? Because I think that's been one of the pieces of evolution for us. We recognized where we had some gaps in the skill set. Perhaps Jack and I are both engineers, practitioners, passionate about the cool projects, and realized we've had the support of a fractional CFO so that we've got the data we need. We've had the focus on financials. By setting up a meeting rhythm with him, it's enabled us to have more clarity, and then be able to do that really informed short and long-term strategic decision making for the business. And part of that was just learning where our, leaning into where we recognized we weren't investing the time and getting the support to give us structure. And that might not be a way that works for everyone, but it's given us a lot of stability to have that routine. So yeah, kia ora, Stephen.
Yeah, kia ora.
Mm.
Thank you. Andy, I'm going to pass to you, and then I'll come back to you, Mark. Andy, anything to kind of share from your perspective on this topic?
Yeah, probably the points I would make are for the long-term strategic goals for us, we've always found that they just have to be really simple and really clear. And you have to have a really strong understanding of why you've come to that decision, so that when there is disruption, you can quickly check against it and see whether it's going to affect your long-term goals, because sometimes it does. Sometimes your long-term goal has to actually change, and you have to be able to change it quickly. So it might not be a short-term disruption. It may actually have a long-term consequence for you when you look at it. And for us, that flexibility is kind of a key point when you're building your strategies, and it requires not just the team at the top to kind of make that change in direction. It's something that you need a really good communication strategy, so that you bring the whole team along with you. So it's if you're going to change the course that the boat's sailing, you need the whole team on board to suddenly move as one. And if you've got anything other than a very simple strategy and very clear and very robust fundamentals to it, then it becomes difficult. And I think it's not, changing strategy is fine. I think you just need to be able to do it as a team. So that's probably the key thing I'd say from our point of view as a business. And we change our strategy regularly. we see what's going on and we just move with it. So yeah, adherence to a long-term strategy. It's always good to have a plan, but plan to change it.
Great reflections. Thank you, Andy. Mark, when we caught up yesterday, it was really interesting hearing about, often we think in construction and infrastructure, we're the only people to experience the boom bust in the way we do. And you explained to me that, through your years in tech and AI and startups and consultancy, you've very much seen the same sort of rhythms, and you've lived and breathed those as well. So really keen to hear from your perspective what some of the lessons are that you've learned around disruptions and how to lead through them.
Yeah, I've been around for a while, and I've experienced the dot-com bubble busting in 2000, and then the global financial crisis really hit tech hard in 2008. And then when COVID, in a weird way, put a bunch of money into tech for 2020 and 2021, and then it all sort of went away. So there was sort of this crash in 22 and 23. And so, yeah, I've been through a few of these cycles. And Projectworks, I think, is a great example. We're a Wellington-founded company, and we have been serving initially New Zealand and now Australia customers as well as global. And I think just really focusing in on a niche that you are the experts at. I think Emily talked about this, right? Like really knowing who you are, what your value is, and just staying really focused on that is critical in these kinds of times, because even in the worst of times, there are still companies out there that need your help. And there are, so it takes sometimes a little extra hustle, a little bit more work to find new customers or to find new projects. But if you're very clear on who you are and what you're doing, that tends to be the way to get through it. The other thing I would say is there's just having good data on your financials and really thinking about each expense you have, and can you cut it back just to give you, if in these challenging times, having just a little bit of extra cash or a little bit of extra money gives you more flexibility or more time to let the market recover. So we got really, really focused on the financials and like what are we spending, what can we save a little bit on, and where can we get just that extra project or two to really help us kind of make the balance sheet better, make the P&L better. And it's in a way you just have to kind of keep going, like find a way to keep going, because the macro environment will get better. We don't know when, and so that you got to give yourself enough runway that you're still around when it does, right? And yeah, and then I also think to the extent you have the opportunity, like Stephen mentioned, talent was hard to get 2 years ago. If you can hire people today, there's some really great people out looking for work. So if you've got that little bit of room to bring on great talent, that's just fantastic, I think. If you can, not everybody does. But if you've got that flexibility, that's a key piece. Again, thinking about the long term.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great advice, and great lead into our next set of questions, which is around collaboration and retention, and then we'll be leaning into questions around hiring and team structure. I'm actually going to skip forward. I gave the panelists some warning that I might do this. I might bounce off the question and mix things up. So, Stephen, one of the things that we wanted to explore with you was around whether you've made any counterintuitive moves like growing headcount during uncertainty. And Mark's just said there's some great people out there at the moment. Is there anything counterintuitive that you've done that you could share with the audience today?
Yeah, absolutely. Just pick up on Mark. Doesn't it all flow together nicely? Pick up on Mark. Yeah, Mark's alluding cash is king. It's early an element.
Yes.
Truth to that. But the other thing as well, Mark alluded to, was those business metrics and forecasting and stuff like that. Man, we've really leaned into that in this time. And what that's done, Helen, is it's allowed us to do something that's somewhat counterintuitive, although we've all alluded to it, and that's actually grow headcount. So yeah, we've looked at how to deliver the strategy and taking a longer term focus, trying to see through this period. It used to be survive till 25, now it's just survive 25. And I forget what the saying is for 26 now, but I know there's one out there. So we've looked at that. We talked about the war on talent, and that's still going to be there. That's still going to be there because we don't generate enough engineers and skilled professionals in New Zealand, and Australia is a big lure, and so is other countries. So that's still there. But as Mark said, and Emily also highlighted, there are opportunities at the moment. And we're looking at those opportunities, and I feel I have the backing of the board and the shareholders here at Riley to actually take that longer term focus as long as it's aligned with the strategy. So yeah, it's cautious. It's trying to do it in a sustainable way. But for SMEs, this is an opportunity for us. And if you've got the resource there, yeah, try and take that longer term view. It could reap a lot of dividends in a year or two's time.
Wonderful. Thinking to you, Andy, I'm not sure where you're at in terms of whether you've grown your team, but I can imagine that you're trying to retain your talent as much as possible. Is there any initiative that you've taken to retain talent or build resilience at this time?
I don't think there's any specific initiative that we've developed. I mean, we've certainly managed to retain our staff pretty well, and we have actually been growing as well. We've been lucky from that point of view. I guess it just relates back to that long-term strategy that everyone's been talking about. That there's going to be an upturn, you're just not sure when. So as long as you're focusing on the basic fundamentals, are you getting work across the table, then and what your long-term strategy is, and now is the time to be looking to recruit staff. Easily said, of course. How do we manage that? I think retaining staff for us is quite simply you need to build a contract of loyalty between us. We have the employment contracts. They don't really mean anything the same way with contracts on jobs. It's all about gaining loyalty in that and trust in that relationship. So that really means that people know that you're not gonna just cut and run as soon as times are tough, and it has to work both ways. And I guess that has to start from the employer. I think an employee has every right to be suspicious to start off with. So as an employer, you have to prove yourself to them that you're in it for the long haul and to build the staff in your team. So nothing too complex in that, but I think it's just that's a basic fundamental contract that you have to have with your staff. And again, it goes to being really clear and early communicators about what's going on in the business. You know, if there's challenges, then you make sure the staff have visibility of that and what you're doing to address it.
Great, thank you, Andy. That visibility and transparency with your teams, I think, is really important, and particularly during times of challenge. I remember during COVID how we all glued to the TV at 1 p.m. for that consistency of messaging and learning how important that was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I would just like to invite our audience, people participating in our webinar today, just to remind you, you can pop any questions or reflections in the chat. We have an amazing group of leaders here who would just love to have the opportunity to answer your questions or provide their reflections on your thoughts. So please get active and pop things in the chat. And while you're thinking about that, I'm just going to pick up on one more thread. And Stephen, you mentioned the war on talent. So while we've been talking about retaining talent or growing talent within your business, there is a broader question for us around talent in our sector, not just domestically in New Zealand, but also around the world. The skill shortage is a #1 issue across Europe and in North America as well, I know at the moment, if not in other corners of the world. Emily, with that in mind, do you see retention as something we solve at the firm level, or is there something bigger needed from industry to truly kind of stem that tide?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think just picking up on what Andy said previously, I completely support that piece around trusted relationships with the team. And one of our challenges is that piece of open communication around business performance. And it's been an interesting, I guess, need to mature myself as a business leader, because I grew up, you don't really talk about money, but we're a business, so we have to talk about money, and how do we communicate that to the team? And so I think I am on track, even though it seems like I've gone laterally. The connection to that in my mind was around retention and the trust and the relationships that we build as leaders, so that we're not just trying to sugarcoat it, because when times are tough, it's kind of our thought had been, we want to make sure the team feels safe and secure, and that we've got their backs, they've got their jobs, all these things are going on. But actually, you don't want to just kind of marshmallow coat it. There's more honesty and authenticity and transparency in talking to business performance. And that's been a real challenging space for Jack and I as business leaders to learn how to do effectively. And I wouldn't say we've necessarily nailed it, but it's really front of mind. And so for us, I think part of the piece, I'm going to sit on the fence in this answer, part of the piece is very much internal. It's around the culture and those trusted relationships and having clear lines of communication. But I do think there's a piece that needs to be industry-wide in how we retain our fabulous, engineers and professionals in New Zealand, to see the value of our community of practice, of expertise, and the work that we do at home, and how we welcome any international expertise in to help tautoko and deliver that work. Because the draw overseas can be super appealing. Australia's offering lots of money, the land of milk and honey, all of that. So what do we have in Aotearoa that can hold people here? And I think there's something to be said around a change in practice around collectivism and what's good for all of us, and how to the rising tide lifts all boats. And it seems, I feel like I'm already listening to myself in a dream world, but I think there's a lot to learn from indigeneity and a collective need to not accept significant inequity, pulling people above a bottom line, and our work that we do as engineers, irrespective of the professions that we can do, help provide key, social services. And so how do we connect with a lot of the young professionals coming through who are really values driven, who do have different expectations around work-life blend or balance, whatever you want to call it, particularly with flexible working and your work bleeding in and out. So I think at an industry-wide level, how can we as business leaders, or how can ACE support us to have messaging that elevates the value of our profession at home beyond purely monetary gain, because we all need to earn a living, we all need to have enough to thrive as whānau, but actually the work we do is to enable us to live as community, as people, as families. So I don't know, I feel like I'm off on a little bit of a tangent, but that's what drives me as a business leader, to connect the work that we do beyond a technical design package delivered through a contract for a fee, but it's to actually support our families, our communities, and our sense of purpose. So I think that's an industry-wide piece. And then we need to do it at home in our own little businesses. I'll stop.
Wow, I love that. So beautifully put, Emily. Would any of the panelists like to comment or build on that?
Yeah, I'll build on that. I was like, how Helen do engineers get as valued as highly as lawyers?
That's a perennial question.
If
you're talking monetary value.
Before.
That'll keep a few more in New Zealand.
Wonderful. Okay, we've got a few comments coming through, which is delightful. So thank you for our participants for sending things through. I'm going to read firstly from Johnny, who has said slightly off topic, but is anyone, those were his words, is anyone taking the opportunity when it is a little quieter on the project front to identify young leadership within the team to allow you as leaders try and have better support for when things pick up? If so, how are you finding the processes? Are you finding some younger leaders seem a lot more risk averse potentially than the current leaders, and how are you tackling that challenge? Anyone keen to pick that one up?
I can chat a little bit about it. When I was at Nexient, we created this matrix that showed every position in the company and what you needed to do to be good at it. And we sort of challenged people to say, if you want to move up or move to a different group, a different discipline, this is what you need to know. And so we're happy to sit down with you, come up with a learning plan, and help you master these different skills that you need. And it was really well received. People really liked sort of the transparency of, okay, I've mastered what's in my box. Now I want to look at the next box, and oh, I don't really know how to do these things, but please help me. And people really resonated with that. So I'd say to the extent that's doable in your company, be very transparent and very open, and people really rise to it.
Thank you, Mark. And probably a good place for me to do a little plug for ACE's competency framework that we released last year, which you'll find on our website alongside a digital tool that helps, that looks around different stages of roles or growth within the consulting profession as you might move up into the business leadership, and what type of areas you can develop your skills in across those. So really great resource that can transparently, you can sit down with and plan for your team that growth pathway.
This seems staged, but that's exactly what I was going to talk to, because what we've found in a leadership space is we've got significant technical competence, but sometimes there's a lack of confidence or certainty in those professional skills around communication, around relationship building, around nurturing, relationships with clients or with the team, and having those challenging conversations when you need to, because, that's part of leadership too. And so we've leaned into using the competency framework. So that's been a really useful piece for us, and trying to provide really effective feedback to leaders coming through on where they may either feel a lack of confidence, and the advice we can give that of where they're excelling or succeeding, but also opportunities of where that could be an avenue for growth. Yeah.
Fantastic. We have Andy, did you want to comment here?
I was just thinking through. It's a very good question. There's two parts to it. Obviously, there's developing people when things are a bit quieter and using that opportunity, which of course makes sense. But it's probably the biggest challenges come when you're really busy. In a way, that's when you really work out where your leadership's going. When you don't have and you barely have enough time, even when things are a bit quieter. But when things get busy, then, as we all know, all the systems in place all start falling apart, and you get overloaded. So trying to train staff in the busy times and trying to spot the leadership capability and bring them on is always challenging. For us, for me particularly, that's always been a big challenge. I started the business from two staff, and we're now 50. So there's a lot of big learnings for me for how do you spot talent and bring them forward. My most useful tactic has always been to state that I want the staff that are coming in below me to be better engineers and better managers than I am, which means you have to be very open in your conversations about things that you're doing well and which things in particular you're not doing so well. So I don't necessarily want people using me as a role model for how to do things right. There's definitely and finding external sources for training courses and things like that, and giving them that opportunity. That's probably where I look to see the future leaders in the business. But yeah, it's the thing about whether people are a bit more risk averse now as a generational thing, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there's always been conservatism, a lot of conservative people in the industry, and there's a few people that are willing to push themselves forward and take a few bigger risks. I think they're still there from what I see.
Can I make a quick comment here, Hill?
Yeah, of course.
Just a quick one. I actually disagree with Johnny. I don't think it's slightly off topic. I think this is on topic. This is a resilience question. This is absolutely a resilience question. And it's one that we're tackling as well. What does leadership succession look like at Riley? Completely relevant question. And how do we make Gen Z answer the phone? That's one of the things.
How do we?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's one
Text
of the
them first.
Yeah, text them first. But it's about those challenging conversations that's been highlighted. How can they do that? Because that's leadership, right? It's having those conversations. So I think it's an entirely relevant question. I don't have magic answers for it, but it's one that we're looking at ourselves.
Great question then. Thank you, Johnny. Elise has put a question in the chat. How should we structure our teams to effectively absorb the ebbs and flows of the work pipeline while maintaining ready scalability? Specifically, what does good look like in balancing the ratio of supervisors to team members? And at what point do professionals typically prefer greater autonomy or a self-managed model? Any reflections?
Yeah, that's such a great question. When I was running Nexian, we had this challenge that I ran it as an independent company for 7 years, and I think there were like maybe 5 days out of the 7 years that we were perfectly in balance between having hired the right number of people and sold the right amount of work. It's so difficult to get this right. You got to have a great tool to give you a view of your team and what you've got committed, what you've got in the maybe likely category, and then who's definitely not got anything in the next few weeks. So you have a pretty good understanding. The other thing that we were able to do was balance full-time employees of the company versus people who were contractors to the company. And the difference for us was sort of in the promise that we would make them. When we hired full-time, we would promise that we would keep them busy between projects. If we hired them as a contractor, when this project ends, then we'll no longer employ you. And so we had anywhere between 10 and 20% of our workforce as contractors. That just gave us a level of flexibility that we really needed because it was so hard to get this balance right. So I've definitely felt that pain. But I'd say get good analytics, get a good tool that helps you manage your resourcing and gives you visibility, and then maybe use contractors as flexibility.
Thanks, Mark. See some thumbs up there. So great answer. Anyone else want to throw anything in the mix here?
We had to have conversations as well, partly informed by tools that could help us project work and workload better, but also being realistic in our timeframes and having conversations with clients if we did have to manage peak flow. And I know that's also another element of basics, but it's linked to our earlier conversation around phone calls and difficult conversations. Oftentimes you've got a high pressure environment coming in from clients saying, we need this now, and an inclination to go, yeah, we can do it. Yeah. And sometimes that might have to be the answer, but sometimes it's like, do you really need it now? We've got a peak of workflow, and having the knowledge to say, well, we can commit to it by this day, and this is the impact, So I think working with our team to really effectively manage expectations when we do get those, at least in the peak space, we've similarly had relationships with contractors as well to help balance workflow. Yeah, but I think the communication piece linking into leadership and good relationship management has been another tool in our kete to help manage that balance. And sometimes if we're finding our niche, linking back to what are we really good at, we can't take that work now. We would love to work with you. Can we start that in 3 weeks or a month or whatever the time frame might be when we have capacity, and having that authenticity and transparency to have those conversations, knowing that the risk is they might go, no, we can't wait that long. We'll find someone else.
Yeah, I'd probably just support that comment. That's the single biggest thing for us is honesty with the clients in terms of whether you're going to be able to deliver on time and keeping the communication high. So we all know managing resources and matching resources just impossible to get right. It's management of a chaotic system without any doubt about it, in the true sense of chaotic. Projects start and stop on a dime often. So just responding honestly with clients and protecting the company's reputation as being honest is the most important thing. I'd rather lose a job rather than over promise on timescales, because it just comes around eventually if you're looking at the long term.
Thank you. Great reflections. We are close to time, but we have 2 more questions in the chat. So I'm going to read them out, and then perhaps when we do a round out around the table, you can add any reflections relevant to them as we do our wind up for today's session. So Carlos has asked about regarding cash is king and the strategic decision for management of operating costs and expenses. Could you specify the cost categories that have been targeted for optimization, such as software, IT expenditures, recruitment, and costs? And it may be that might be a question we can answer in the wrap-up comms. And Dan's question is around what pro tips we can share for how to think about approaching the tough challenge of delivering more for less. So with that in mind, I'm going to give Stephen, Emily, and Andy a quick last word, and I'm going to loop to Mark to do a wrap up. So Stephen, last word. Anything to add?
Oh, anything to add? I don't need to address Dan's, all respect, Dan. Dan's great question about how to do more for less. Very difficult question, Dan. Technology, of course, is meant to be the magic answer, but as I said right at the top, with caution, and how do you ascertain it actually makes the boat go faster? So for us, we're looking at external expertise to that as to whether it actually does it. I think these are challenging times. We've been fortunate as a company where we're at, but I do have great sympathy for everyone else. But hopefully, what I've shared here gives an illustration as to what we're doing. And business metrics is one of the key ones for us, and developing that has really been advantageous for us to get us through what we're doing at the moment, and hopefully that's of some help to other people out there.
Thank you, Stephen. Andy, any final pearls of wisdom or thoughts before we wrap up?
It's an interesting one about delivering more for less. Probably I think that is a great question. We all know that's the driver always. For us, we kind of came to the conclusion on that a lot of it is to do with communication. That's where we lose time and money, because we don't define the problem well enough, and that's all about communicating with the client. So the engineers normally once they know exactly what the parameters of the problem are, they solve it pretty quickly. So AI will help, but I don't know whether, if you're writing a report, it will write it quick for you. But I don't think that's where we slow down. We slow down because we have to add things in or change, or the direction changes. So that's probably my one last comment. Again, it just links back to communication. AI is not going to solve all the problems. I think communication skills is really where we want to drive and get people on the telephone, as you said.
Thank you, Andy. Emily.
Kia ora. I know I've had the most time to think about it, but for the more for less one is a difficult question, because we do work with a minimum expectation of our own quality as well. And so systems and processes will improve it, but we're not interested in a race to the bottom if it just means trying to cut margins or ask our team to work under undue pressure. So we do need to do more for less. We've got heaps of room for improvement in our systems and processes, particularly when you've grown incrementally, and doing a little bit of a system audit and a reset to go, oh, there's lots of tweaks we can do here or change this methodology. So operationally, that's the key space, but also understanding who you work for and why, and what they're asking of you, and is it reasonable? So I want to push back a little bit on that, even if at the expense of being, I guess, disagreed with as well. But anyway, kia ora, I've really enjoyed this conversation. We're at the small end, we're growing, we've been figuring out how it goes, and now the business clarity, some of the metrics, key communications with our team and with our clients, all of the kōrero that's had has been really fundamental in our evolution as a business, but first and foremost grounded by our purpose. So tēnā te mihi kia koutou.
Kia ora. Thank you, Emily and Mark. I know we're a little bit over time, but we can keep this going. If you need to drop off, that's okay, participants, because you can watch the recording later to capture these final gems of wisdom. But over to you, Mark.
Thank you. And first off, thank you, Helen and Stephen and Andy and Emily, for the great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Lots of things. It's kind of hard to just do a quick wrap up here, but on the AI topic, I thought it was really great to hear about everybody's sort of concerns around where is my data going, how am I actually going to valuably apply this. And Emily, I'm going to keep quoting you, I think, for a week or two on like I need time to learn the thing that's going to save me time. Is such a great way to think about it. And then on the resilience, I think, really getting into who you are and knowing that deeply and driving that all the way through. And then cash is king as the way to give your company the oxygen to get hopefully through the challenging times. So it's been great. Just again, thank you to Helen and to Ace, and we at Projectworks hope we can provide more information about our platform if that could be helpful to everyone in the audience. So thank you. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Stephen, Emily, and Andy, the team at Projectworks, and all of you who have joined us online. Can't believe how fast the last hour has gone. But if you have outstanding questions, you can always get in touch with the ACE team, and we'll happily coordinate getting some thoughts back to you. I'm going to close us off with a karakia to see you on your way for the rest of the day. Kia whakaria te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai. Haumie, huie, tai kie. Kia ora, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.